Hello and welcome to another Game of the Year episode of the channel. We're going to be talking about the biggest loser of 2017. Now this topic obviously can be a game, it can be a company, it can be an idea, it can be literally anything, and it's very obvious what the winner of this category is this year. Before we get to what that winner is, we'll talk about the runner-up. The runner-up for this category is Microsoft's first-party studios, and just overall output as a game publisher this year has been, like, it's just, I hate to be negative about it, but like, this is one of your big games of 2017. If you own an Xbox One, Super Lucky's Tale is one of your biggest games of 2017. So like, that's one of the games. Halo Wars 2 back in February, all the way back in February. And then Cuphead. Cuphead's like the one anomaly here in this whole entire argument of like, well, they've had a lot of whatever games this year, but they had Cuphead. And the important thing to note about Cuphead is not only is it an Xbox Play Anywhere title, all of these titles are, it also was available on Steam as well through some sort of deal with Studio MDHR. So that game isn't even a true exclusive. So, not even counting that, if we remove Cuphead from the equation, your titles were Forza 7, Super Lucky's Tale, and Halo Wars 2. Those were your three big Microsoft titles in 2017. Now, yes, Crackdown 3 was supposed to be one of them. Got delayed till next year, but where are all the other heavy hitters? Look at Sea of Thieves, delayed till 2018. State of Decay 2, delayed till 2018. And Crackdown 3 as well, as I just said. So, all of their big titles that we know about are delayed until 2018, and then you have to factor in cancellations of games that probably would have came out this year. Also, obviously the big gaping hole in their exclusives right now is Scalebound. Scalebound was going to be a big game for Microsoft. That was like their true, like, they went after a Japanese studio, Platinum Games, to get that game out here in the States as an Xbox One exclusive, and that fell through, and that one was a huge loss too. And so they've had a massively bad year on their first party front. And a lot of that was they hyper-focused so much on releasing the Project Scorpio, the Xbox One X, whatever you want to call it. And because they hyper-focused on that, I feel like they lessened their focus on games, and that really had them suffer in 2017. Someone who has been a pretty much lifelong Xbox fan, it's been a rough year for Xbox owners. Like, I'm really enjoying the Xbox One X. I have my Project Scorpio edition, and I've been enjoying it. I've used my Xbox One, I think I said in my Xbox One review video, more in the month of November than I probably used my Xbox One combined every other month this year. And it's just because there was not much to play on the system. Halo Wars 2 and Cuphead were the two games that I really cared about. I have Super Lucky's Tale now, but I didn't play Forza 7 because I don't care about racing games. That's me. So they've had a bad year, but obviously transitioning out of that into the winner of this category, which is a totally bigger, more huge story, just as one big whole. The biggest loser of 2017 is, of course, EA, Electronic Arts. They have been labeled the worst company to exist, I think, 2012 and 2013. They will surely win that dubious award again this year. But you can't even look at just Battlefront 2. Even if you remove Battlefront 2 from this whole equation, you still have the rest of 2017, which has been a mess for EA. We go all the way back into March of this year with Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect Andromeda is the fourth in a franchise that is a best-selling, high-profile, very lucrative franchise for EA. And they shit the bed with that. That was the first thing they screwed up in 2017 was Mass Effect Andromeda. And it should have been alarming to us when, between 2015 when the game was announced and the release, how much footage did we see of that game before release? Not very much. You think about E3, the two times they showed that game at the E3s of 2015 and 2016, none of it was gameplay or anything like that. It was all concept art and footage and very, very like alpha footage and that kind of stuff. And that's the biggest alarm that anyone could ring for that game, is you're not seeing what that game actually looks like. So when it came out And it was a huge mess at launch of, hey, these animations look terrible. Oh, it looks like the B team over at BioWare wrote and worked on this game. Well, the A team is obviously over there working on Anthem. So, yeah, really bad stuff. That was just March, you know. And to have that game come out, be the next Mass Effect game, and to fail so miserably as that game did, and, you know, now they're out there, they canceled any DLC plans for that game. They've pretty much said, like, Mass Effect is a franchise that is now on hold for probably the next 5 years. And that is a hard pill to swallow as a Mass Effect fan, but if you look at how disappointing that game was, I'd rather them put a pin in that franchise for a couple years and hopefully come back to it with something that is way better than what Andromeda offered. And time will tell. I think when they do come back to the drawing board with Mass Effect, it'll be yet another new installment, new characters, new galaxy, much like Andromeda was. I think they will forget everything about Andromeda, and they will just make their own game. I also don't think they would come out and make Mass Effect 4, and, you know, that just wouldn't make sense. So, but again, it's going to be a long time till we see anything about Mass Effect now. That franchise is all but dead, thanks to Andromeda. That was just then. That was literally just March. So they started off their year really, really bad. They had a pretty bad E3 press conference. You know, the one shining thing that came out of their press conference was A Way Out, which still looks really cool, but no one's talked about it since E3, so I don't know what's going on there. But, you know, you think of some of their other high-profile launches. I mean, this was the Battlefront 2 year, and we'll get to that. But also Need for Speed Payback came out, and that game also apparently is really bad. So, again, as a racing fan, I have not played Need for Speed Payback. I have no desire to play Need for Speed Payback. I was a little bit on board with this one, only simply because it seemed like it was mimicking a lot of Fast and the Furious stuff, and that interested me. But then when I saw those reviews hit, I was like, oh, they made another bad Need for Speed game. And kind of have for the last couple, you know, years. They took a year off too. Like the 2015 one didn't set the world on fire, and they took a year off to make this one, and now this one is bad. So I don't know what you do to salvage the Need for Speed franchise, but that was bad. Then in October, to make this whole EA thing even worse, they shut down Visceral Games. These are the people that brought you Dead Space and that entire franchise. These people in more recent years, they did Battlefield Hardline, I believe the single-player campaign for it. And there's something else they did. I should have done my research before I did this video after it, but most notably, they were known for the Dead Space franchise. They shut that studio down. It's no longer a thing. And that one's a huge bummer. I mean, we kind of already knew we weren't going to get another Dead Space game out of Visceral because 3 didn't sell very well, and they decided to just move that talent onto other things at that studio. But that was a very big, popular, up-and-coming studio that did 3, I'd argue 2 really, really good games and one that was whatever, but shut that down. So, and then obviously the icing on the shit cake that EA has, you know, doled out and ate all year is Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is, I mean, I've never seen something this big of a mess. I've never seen this big of a mess in anything video game related, I think, in the entirety of my life. Like, it's such a colossal mess, this game. All the messaging around it, everything they tried to pull, everything that happened between it, it's a humongous mess, and I don't even know how you fix it at this point. I mean, where do I begin? Let's go all the way back to May, you know, or June, E3. You know, they had their big E3 coming out thing. They brought out that actress that plays Iden Versio in the campaign, who, again, I'm not going to butcher her name here. You know, they kind of went through their spiel of like, hey, you know what, we're listening to gamers. We're listening to the fans out here. This is what we're doing to fix Battlefront 2. You know what, we're not going to do a season pass this time. All this content's going to be free. We're going to throw all this out for everybody for free. We're going to dole it out through free updates. They also came out promising this great, excellent single-player campaign. And, I mean, man, I know Mass Effect Andromeda won my most disappointed game of 2017 award, but Star Wars Battlefront 2, I was So looking forward to that campaign. I mean, again, the big selling point for me in Battlefront 2 was never the multiplayer. It was this single player campaign where the promise was, hey, we have 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens to tell a story of what happened in between those years. And they do, but they spend that entire storyline within the first, I'd say, 4 years after Return of the Jedi, and then they just flash forward to the beginning of Force Awakens. So it doesn't stretch over any amount of time, and it's horribly and poorly written. I'd go as far to say it's piss poor when it comes to the writing in that game, which is a shame. There's just so many things in that campaign alone, and I'm not even talking about the mess with the multiplayer, which we'll get to in a minute, but that single player campaign, there's one mission. So I explain, I don't mean to go on a rant here because, you know, I reviewed Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I highly encourage you guys to go watch that video. In fact, if you want a full breakdown of my thoughts on Battlefront 2, watch my first impressions where I was immediately really high in the game, and then watch my Battlefront 2 review where I finished the game and just was a complete 180 on it and was really put down. But one of the biggest things, and I didn't get a chance to talk about this in my video review, and I didn't realize that I didn't talk about it until after my video review, was in the game, you play as different Star Wars characters. So there are 12 missions, I believe. 6 of them you play as known Star Wars characters: Luke, Han, Leia, Lando, and they're all voiced terribly, by the way. Although I learned between these two videos, between my review and doing this video, that I guess Billy D. Williams did do the voice work of Lando in that game. So I think that's kind of interesting, but no one else, obviously, you know, like Carrie Fisher's no longer with us anymore. Harrison Ford ain't going to be coming and doing a video game. And Mark Hamill's busy with Last Jedi stuff. So, but the Luke mission, prime example of, like, I'm excited. This is a Star Wars story. It's set in the time period that I want a Star Wars story set in. You get to like 4 missions in and you play as Luke. And what is that mission? It's you defending another guy while he's trying to access terminals, and you're fighting bugs. Literal bugs. You're not fighting anything out of the ordinary, some weird alien space creature, something you would expect out of Star Wars. These are just overgrown cockroaches. And it's stuff like that where it's like, this is just the most generic thing, and none of it is good. The story is so poorly written. Like, I could write a better Star Wars story, and I'm not a writer, so... Oh man, like, just that campaign, and it's 4 hours long. I played on the normal difficulty, and like I beat it in one sitting. It's bad, and not to rant so much on that single player campaign, but that's what I was looking forward to the most. But on the multiplayer side of things, that's bad too. I played a match of the heroes and villains mode. I thought it was terrible, and they do stupid stuff that makes no sense. So like, I was playing as Yoda, and I'm in this match, and somebody else on my side is playing as Lando, and then you got Kylo Ren on the other side. Lando literally makes a comment as he's fighting Kylo Ren in this mode: yeah, I don't know who that dude in the helmet is. What? That's not something Lando would say. Like, it's shit like that where you're like, what happened here? So, you have to talk about the Loot Crate fiasco, though. Like, and that's the big thing about EA. They tried to pull something here. And, I mean, obviously, everybody knew when they announced that the Season Pass content was going to be free, they had to make up that cost somewhere else. Microtransactions are the way to make up that cost. When they do it as something like Halo 5 or Gears of War 4, I thought that those were good implementations of microcurrency in a game and everything like that. Star Wars does it a really, really terrible way, and it's not a fun way to play the game. And EA's first, one round in the chamber way of dealing with that problem was, all right, well, we're just going to slash all these characters, 75%. That doesn't fix the problem at hand. So, on one point of the thing, I think the internet, got a little out of hand with this situation. But, I mean, and the important thing to note at the end of this whole situation is that nobody's really won this battle here. EA, all they've done is temporarily shut off microtransactions in the game. They will still turn those on later on. And now the progression system in that game is incredibly jacked up because there is no way to progress unless you're kind of spending money in the game. And because you can't spend money in the game, you can't really progress in the multiplayer side of things the way that you would normally in, say, let's say you're playing something like Call of Duty or Halo or something. So it's bad. And that alone would be enough to make EA the biggest loser of 2017, but then you have to factor in all this other stuff that happened before Star Wars Battlefront 2's fiasco. I know in 2012 people got upset at EA because of the Mass Effect 3 ending, and that was incredibly controversial, but that pales in comparison to the year that they've had in 2017. So anyways, guys, biggest loser of 2017, EA. They did horrible this year. There's nothing more I can really say about the situation. They did really bad this year. I'd love to know in the comments below what you guys think were the biggest loser of 2017. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.